David was an ordinary man living in a quiet town near a large forest. He worked as a mechanic in a small garage. Every day he fixed cars and helped people with their machines. His life was simple and peaceful. He liked routine and never thought much about anything unusual. But one evening, everything changed. That day, David finished his work late. The sky was dark, and the air was cool. He decided to take a shortcut through the forest to get home faster. The forest was big and quiet, with tall trees that touched the sky. As he walked, he enjoyed the fresh air and the sounds of nature. Birds were silent now, and the wind softly moved the leaves. Suddenly, David saw a strange light shining through the trees. It was soft but very bright, and it moved slowly. Curious, he followed the light carefully. When he reached a small clearing, he found something that stopped his breath. In the middle of the clearing, lying on the ground, was a small creature. It looked like a child, but was very different from any human. Its skin was smooth and slightly glowing with a blue color. Its eyes were big and shiny, full of pain and fear. The child was weak and barely moving. David's heart filled with worry. He quickly walked closer and gently touched the child's forehead. The child was burning hot but too weak to speak. David could see a deep cut on the child's arm, and blood was slowly dripping onto the ground. David knew he had to help. He had no idea what kind of creature this was, but he could see the child was in serious trouble. He tried to talk softly to calm the child, but no response came. The child's breathing was shallow, and it looked like she might die very soon. David took out his phone, but there was no signal in the forest. He realized he could not call for help. Time was running out. He needed to act quickly, or the child would not survive. He remembered a first aid class he once took long ago. He carefully took a clean cloth from his bag and pressed it gently on the child's wound to stop the bleeding. Then he looked around for something to help carry the child. While searching, David noticed the child's skin was cooling down slowly. He felt a deep sense of responsibility. He was the only one here who could help. Even though he was scared and confused, he knew he must do everything he could. David decided to carry the child back to his home. It was not far, and there was a medical kit there. The child was light, almost like she had no strength left. David held her carefully, trying not to hurt her more. On the way, David noticed something strange. The child's body seemed to change color in the moonlight. Her skin glowed softly, and faint blue lines appeared like tiny lights moving under her skin. David wondered what kind of being she was. Was she from this world or somewhere else? When David reached his small house, he laid the child down gently on his couch. He opened his medical kit and began cleaning the wound. As he worked, the child's eyes slowly opened. She looked at David with trust and hope. David felt a strong connection with her. He did not understand her language, but he could see her pain and fear. He spoke calmly and smiled, hoping to make her feel safe. Suddenly, the child's small hand reached out and touched David's arm. It was a weak touch, but full of meaning. David felt a strange warmth spread through his body. It was like a silent "thank you." David knew the child needed blood. Her skin was pale, and her eyes looked tired. He thought about going to the hospital, but it was too far, and he did not know if they would believe him. How could he explain this strange child? Then he remembered that sometimes people need blood transfusions to survive. Without hesitation, David decided to give some of his own blood. It was a big risk because he did not know if his blood would help this alien child, but he could not just wait. David carefully prepared for the blood donation, following the instructions from his first aid training. He cleaned his arm and used a needle to take blood. The child's body seemed to respond immediately. A soft light glowed brighter around her. Hours passed, and David stayed awake, watching over the child. Slowly, she started to regain strength. Her breathing became steady, and her eyes looked clearer. David felt relief and happiness. He had saved a life. The next morning, David was tired but hopeful. He knew this was only the beginning of a strange journey. Who was this child? Where had she come from? And what would happen now that he had helped her? Before he could answer, he heard soft footsteps outside his door. A tall woman stood there with shining eyes and graceful movements. She looked powerful and kind at the same time. The woman introduced herself as Solara, the child's mother. She was from a faraway place, different from Earth. She thanked David with deep respect and explained that their worlds were very different. Their child was part of a special species that needed help quickly to survive. Solara's eyes showed both gratitude and worry. She told David that their connection was stronger now because of what he had done. She said that helping her child had changed their lives forever. David listened carefully. He realized that saving the child was not just an act of kindness. It had started a bond between two very different beings. This bond would bring many challenges, surprises, and perhaps new hopes. David did not know what to expect next, but one thing was sure. His life had changed in a way he could never have imagined. From that moment on, he was no longer just an ordinary man. He had become part of something much bigger. After the first night, David and Solara began to spend more time together. Solara was careful and quiet, but her eyes showed deep sadness and worry. She stayed close to her child, who was now resting peacefully but still very weak. David wanted to help, but he did not understand much about this strange new world Solara came from. Solara explained things slowly, using simple words and gestures. She told David that her people came from a distant planet far away in space. Their lives were very different from humans. They lived in harmony with nature and had strong connections with the stars. Their planet was beautiful, but fragile, and they depended on each other to survive. The child, whom David learned was named Leora, was very special. She belonged to a rare group in their species, born with unique abilities but also more vulnerable to danger. When Leora was hurt, it was not just her body that suffered, but the future of her whole family and people. Solara's eyes filled with tears when she spoke of this. David listened carefully. He felt honored that Solara trusted him with such important information. At the same time, he felt confused and overwhelmed. He never imagined meeting beings from another world, let alone saving one of their children. One evening, as they sat near a small fire outside David's house, Solara spoke about a custom from her planet. She said that when someone from another species helps their child in a deep and life-saving way, a bond forms between them. This bond is not just friendship, it is a sacred connection that joins their families forever. Solara's voice was gentle but serious. She explained that this bond required something special to be completed. The child needed a strong link to both parents, even if one parent was from another species. This link helped her heal completely and grow strong. David looked at Solara with surprise. He asked her gently what she meant by a link. Solara hesitated, but then said that their people believed in a ritual. This ritual involved the parents sharing their life forces in a way that united their families and species. David was shocked. He did not know what to think. The idea sounded strange and hard to understand, but he saw the hope in Solara's eyes and the trust she had in him. Over the next days, David learned more about Solara's culture. She showed him books and pictures from her planet. Their people had many customs about family, love, and protection. The ritual was not just about the child, but about creating peace and balance between two worlds. David's neighbors noticed something was different. Strange lights sometimes shone from his house at night, and unusual sounds were heard. Some people whispered and wondered if David was involved in something dangerous or mysterious. But David did not care about their questions. His focus was on helping Leora and understanding Solara's world. Solara and David also faced challenges because of their differences. Their languages were different, so they used drawings and simple words to communicate. Sometimes David felt frustrated because he could not explain everything. Solara, too, felt lonely and missed her home and people. Despite these difficulties, they found comfort in each other's company. David showed Solara the beauty of Earth's nature, the stars, the trees, and the quiet rivers. Solara shared stories of her planet's skies and magical places. One day, Solara brought David a small crystal from her home planet. It glowed softly and seemed alive. She said it was a symbol of trust and connection. David held the crystal carefully, feeling its warmth. As Leora grew stronger, her colors became brighter. The wound healed, but her energy still depended on the bond that only the ritual could complete. Solara told David that time was short. The ritual must happen soon, or Leora could fall ill again. David was scared. He did not know what would happen during the ritual or what it would mean for his life, but he understood it was important for Leora's survival and for the future of Solara's people. One evening, Solara sat beside David and held his hand. She told him that this was not just about duty, but about hope and new beginnings. She believed that through their bond, their two worlds could learn from each other and live in peace. David looked at Solara with new understanding. He realized this was bigger than anything he had imagined. It was not only about saving a child, but about building a future where different beings could come together. He felt a deep respect for Solara's courage and the sacrifices she was willing to make. David also felt his own heart change. He was no longer just a mechanic from a small town. He was part of a story that reached far beyond Earth. As the days passed, David prepared himself for what was to come. He studied more about Solara's culture and asked questions. Solara taught him about their beliefs, their hopes, and the meaning of family in her world. Though the future was uncertain, David was ready to face it. He wanted to be strong for Leora and Solara. He wanted to show that kindness and courage could create bridges between the unknown and the familiar. The bond between David, Solara, and Leora grew stronger every day. They were no longer strangers, but a new kind of family, united by love and hope. David's life had changed forever. What began as a chance meeting in a quiet forest had become a journey that would change not only him but the fate of two worlds. David knew that understanding Solara's world would not be easy. He wanted to learn everything he could about her people's customs and beliefs, especially about the ritual she had mentioned. This ritual was very important for Leora's health and future, but it was also a deep connection between two very different species. David felt both curious and nervous. He started by asking Solara many questions. She answered as best as she could, but some things were hard to explain. Their worlds were so different, and some ideas did not have simple words. To help, Solara showed David ancient books and glowing images from her home planet. These pictures showed ceremonies, families, and the special bonds her people shared. David noticed how serious Solara was when talking about the ritual. It was not just a tradition, it was a sacred promise. When two beings from different species joined in this way, their lives became connected in many ways. It was like their hearts and minds were linked, helping to protect their child and their family forever. David also learned that Solara's people valued trust, respect, and balance above all. They believed that every life was important, and that families were the foundation of their society. The ritual symbolized these values and brought strength to the family, especially to children like Leora, who needed extra care. But learning about this ritual also made David realize how big the challenge was. It meant more than just a ceremony. It was a commitment that could change his life completely. David wondered if he was ready for such a change. He felt fear and doubt, but he also felt a growing sense of responsibility. One day, David decided to reach out to others for help. He contacted a local scientist who specialized in unusual biology and medicine. David wanted to understand if his blood donation had any effects on Leora's health and what else he could do to help. The scientist was amazed but also cautious. She agreed to study Leora but warned David to be careful. She explained that mixing life forms from different worlds could have unpredictable results. David promised to keep everything safe and private. While the scientist examined Leora, David continued to spend time with Solara. They talked about their families, their hopes, and the futures they dreamed of. Solara told David about the challenges her people faced on their planet: pollution, loss of homes, and threats from enemies. She said that saving Leora was not only about her child, but about protecting a whole culture. David felt a deep respect for Solara's strength and courage. She carried the weight of her world on her shoulders, yet she was gentle and kind. David admired her more every day. Despite their growing friendship, not everyone around David was kind or understanding. Some neighbors grew suspicious and fearful. They whispered that David had been involved with something dangerous or strange. A few people warned him to stay away from Solara and her child. David tried to explain, but words failed. How could he tell them about aliens and rituals from other planets? He realized that fear often comes from not knowing, but David was determined not to let fear stop him. He stood by Solara and Leora, ready to face whatever came next. He believed that kindness and courage could change hearts, even in the face of fear. As the days passed, the time for the ritual grew near. Solara explained that the ritual had to happen soon to complete the healing process. If not, Leora's condition could become dangerous again. David's heart raced with worry and hope. He wanted to be strong, but the unknown frightened him. Solara comforted him, telling him that the ritual was a beautiful way to unite and heal. She promised to be with him every step. One afternoon, Solara took David to a quiet place outside the town. It was surrounded by trees and glowing flowers that shone softly even in daylight. Solara said this place was sacred to her people. It was where families came to make important promises and connections. David looked around in awe. The air felt calm and full of life. He could sense the importance of this place. Solara held his hand and told him that the ritual was not just about their child, but about hope for all their people. David felt a mix of emotions: fear, excitement, and love. He understood that this moment was bigger than him. It was a chance to build a new future with Solara and Leora. That night, David could not sleep. His mind was full of questions and feelings. He thought about his family, his quiet life before, and the new family he was becoming part of. He knew that whatever happened, his life would never be the same. The next morning, Solara explained what would happen during the ritual. It would be a ceremony of sharing and connection. They would exchange life energy in a way that would create a strong bond. This bond would protect Leora and help her grow. David listened carefully. He knew this was a sacred act for Solara's people. It was not something to take lightly. He promised himself to be brave and respectful. As the sun set, David and Solara prepared for the ritual. They wore simple clothes and carried small gifts from their worlds: a crystal from Solara's planet and a small stone from David's home. Together, they entered the sacred place. The glowing flowers lit their way as they stood before an ancient tree. Solara began to sing softly in her language. The sounds were beautiful and calming. David felt a warm energy surround them. He reached out and took Solara's hand. They looked into each other's eyes and felt a deep connection growing. The ritual began. David and Solara shared their life energy through gentle touch and silent words. It was a powerful moment filled with hope and trust. David felt a new strength inside him, and he saw the same in Solara. As the ritual ended, Leora stirred and opened, her eyes wide. Her colors shone brighter than before. David and Solara smiled, knowing the bond was complete. David realized that he was no longer just a man from Earth. He was now part of something much bigger, a family that crossed worlds and showed that love could unite even the most different beings. David's life changed deeply after the ritual. The bond between him, Solara, and Leora was stronger than he ever imagined. It was more than just a connection. It felt like a new family had been formed, crossing the boundaries of two very different worlds. But this new beginning was not without challenges. The days following the ritual were filled with mixed emotions. David felt happiness and hope because Leora was growing healthier every day. Her glowing skin and bright eyes showed that the ritual had worked. Yet David also felt uncertainty and responsibility. The bond they shared brought new expectations and complicated feelings. Solara explained to David that their ritual meant more than healing. It symbolized a promise between two species to protect and support each other. She said that with this bond, David was now part of her family and community. This was not just about the child, but about future generations and peace between their worlds. David thought about what this meant for his life. He knew his world and Solara's world were very different. He wondered how he could live between these two cultures. He worried about the future, about how people around him would react, and about the responsibility he now carried. Despite these worries, David felt a strong determination. He wanted to honor the trust Solara had given him. He wanted to be a good protector for Leora and a true partner for Solara. His simple life as a mechanic had changed into something greater, a mission of love and unity. David's neighbors continued to talk about him and Solara. Some were afraid, some curious, and some even angry. They didn't understand what was happening, and their fear made them suspicious. A few people warned David to stay away from Solara and her child, believing strange stories about aliens. David tried to explain that Solara and Leora were peaceful and kind. He shared stories about how he helped save Leora's life and how their bond was special. But many people found it hard to believe. Fear and misunderstanding were strong. Solara felt the distance from the local community. She missed her home planet and the people who accepted her without question. But she found comfort in David's presence and the safety of his home. Together, they created a small world where love and trust could grow. One afternoon, David received a call from the scientist studying Leora. She had some news. Leora's health was stable, and the bond formed during the ritual was creating a unique energy that helped her body heal faster. The scientist said this was very rare but promising. David felt relief and joy. This news gave him hope that their choice was right. It showed that even the most different lives could connect and heal together. Solara shared more about her culture's views on family and responsibility. She explained that in her world, parents worked together to protect their children and community. She invited David to meet some of her people, who had traveled to Earth to check on Leora. Meeting Solara's people was an eye-opening experience for David. They were different, but kind and welcoming. They asked many questions, but also showed respect for David's role. They spoke about their hopes for peace and cooperation between their worlds. David realized that this new family was bigger than he thought. It included not just him and Solara, but an entire community working toward a better future. Despite this, David still faced moments of doubt. He wondered if he was strong enough for this life. He missed his old routine and the simplicity of before. But every time he looked at Leora's bright eyes or saw Solara's gentle smile, he knew he had made the right choice. David and Solara worked hard to build their life together. They shared daily tasks, cared for Leora, and learned from each other. David taught Solara about Earth's customs, and she taught him about her people's traditions. Their relationship grew deeper with time. They found joy in small moments, watching stars, sharing meals, and talking about hopes for the future. They laughed together and supported each other during hard times. David's friends who stayed close noticed the change, too. They saw how David's kindness and courage had brought new meaning to his life. Some even started to accept Solara and Leora as part of their community. Through patience and love, fear began to fade. People slowly understood that the unknown was not always something to fear, but something to learn from. David's journey showed that true family is made by more than blood. It is made by trust, respect, and care. His simple act of kindness had opened a door to a new world, one where different beings could live together in peace. Though challenges remained, David believed in the future he was building with Solara and Leora. Together, they faced the unknown with hope and strength. Their story was not just about survival, but about love, breaking barriers and creating a new beginning for all. The days after the ritual were filled with new hopes and challenges. David, Solara, and little Leora had become a family, connected not only by their feelings, but by a deep bond that crossed the stars. This bond was new and unfamiliar, but it was strong. It gave them all a sense of purpose and a reason to face whatever came next. David woke up every morning with a feeling he had never known before. He felt responsibility not only for his own life, but for two others, Solara and Leora. They depended on him in ways he was still learning to understand. But David did not feel scared anymore. Instead, he felt proud. He had become part of something much bigger than himself. Solara and David worked closely to take care of Leora. Every day, they watched her grow stronger. Her glowing skin and bright eyes showed that the bond they shared was helping her heal. But it was not only physical healing, it was a healing of spirits, hearts, and worlds. David thought often about how life had changed so suddenly. Just weeks ago, he was a simple man, living quietly and working in his garage. Now, he was a father, figure to a child from another world, and a partner to a woman with stories of distant planets. The change was huge, but David had learned that love could make even the biggest changes feel natural. Solara sometimes shared stories of her home planet's past. She spoke of challenges her people had faced, but also of hope and courage. She told David how their people believed that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple across the universe and change lives forever. David listened with wonder. He realized that their meeting was no accident. It was part of something larger, a chance for two worlds to come together. He felt grateful to be part of that story. As time passed, the local community began to notice the changes too. People who once whispered fears and doubts started to see the truth. They saw the kindness in David's eyes, the gentle care Solara showed, and the bright smile of Leora. Slowly, fear gave way to curiosity, and curiosity grew into acceptance. David and Solara made efforts to connect with their neighbors. They shared their story openly, explaining how they met and how their bond was built on trust and care. Some people still found it hard to believe, but many were touched by their honesty and courage. One special day, the town held a small gathering to welcome Solara and Leora. It was a celebration of new friendship and understanding. David spoke to the crowd, telling them about his first meeting with Leora and how an act of kindness had changed everything. His words were simple but powerful. Thus, community began to see that different did not mean dangerous. It meant opportunity to learn, to grow, and to build a better future together. David also stayed in touch with the scientist who had helped study Leora. Together, they worked on ways to help Leora stay healthy and strong. The scientist was fascinated by the unique bond between David and Solara's family. She believed it could teach humans new things about life, healing, and connection. David felt hopeful about the future. He dreamed of a time when humans and Solara's people could live side by side in peace and friendship. He knew it would take time and effort, but he believed it was possible. Solara shared her dreams too. She hoped that one day her people and humans would understand each other better. She wanted her daughter to grow up in a world where no one feared the unknown, where love was stronger than fear. Together, David and Solara planned for the future. They talked about raising Leora with the best of both their worlds. They wanted her to learn Earth's languages and traditions, but also the wisdom and values of her own people. Their journey was not easy. They faced questions, doubts, and challenges, but through every test, their bond grew stronger. They found joy in the small moments, laughing together, sharing meals, watching the stars at night. David often looked at Leora and thought about how a simple choice to help had changed so many lives. He felt grateful that he had been brave enough to act when it mattered most. Solara held David's hand and told him that their bond was a symbol of hope. It showed that love could cross the greatest distances and overcome the deepest differences. Their family was proof that new beginnings were possible. David smiled, knowing that he had found something precious, a family that was not defined by the same blood or planet, but by trust, kindness, and hope. As the sun set each day, David, Solara, and Leora looked to the sky. They saw the stars that connected their worlds. They knew their story was just beginning, and with courage and love, they would face whatever came next. Their journey was a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected meetings could lead to the greatest adventures, and that kindness, no matter where it comes from, has the power to change the universe.